Syracuse head coach Fran Brown just spilled the tea on why Miami target Trebor Pena left the Orange in the transfer portal. And honestly, Brown might have said a little too much.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On this loaded episode, we'll talk about the Hurricanes who are leaving through the transfer portal. Got a couple more of those who entered the portal yesterday. Nykar, wide receiver, and edge rusher Elias Rudolph. We also have a little bit more to say on Zaquan Patterson, who decided the day before why he's leaving in the portal. In terms of incoming players in the portal, we do have a visit set up. A defensive tackle. I know our guy, the Truth Teller, is listening to this. Miami does have a visit lined up with a defensive tackle. We will talk about that. There's also in recruiting, Florida Gators, formerly committed safety, just decommitted from the Gators and could definitely become a Miami target. But let's talk about Trevor Pena. So Trevor Pena, stud slot receiver out of Syracuse. I mean, I don't want to bring up bad memories, but, Pena played really well, put up big numbers in that defensive disaster that Miami had up there in the Dome last season. And Pena has been brought up a lot as a possibility, maybe as a transfer portal target for the Miami Hurricanes. Shortly after Pena hit the portal, the first two schools that were mentioned by good reporters were Texas Tech and Miami. Now, I don't necessarily think this is going to materialize that quickly in one way or another. Gabby Urrutia from Inside the U had mentioned that this one might end up being kind of a slow burn with Pena's recruitment, which I guess could make sense on both sides. Pena being one of the better players available is going to have a lot of options. He's got to narrow down his visit list. He might choose to visit a number of schools. And of course, Miami might want to see how the whole chessboard develops because the portal just officially opened yesterday. There's going to be a lot more players who enter, but we definitely have reason to believe that Trebor Pena is and should be a Miami target. If you missed our conversation a couple nights ago with Jackson Holzer from Locked On Syracuse, you should check that out. Now, his former head coach, Fran Brown, was interviewed by Q Sports Talk, and man, did he open up on the Trebor Pena situation. Now, folks, I think context is important here. Now, I do agree that Fran Brown said some things that I strongly feel paint Trebor Pena in a negative light and unnecessarily so, right? But I'm also the host of Locked On ACC. In covering Fran Brown for the past couple of years, something you should know about him is when it comes to the way he handles the media, he is a polar opposite from Mario Cristobal and polar opposite from a lot of other coaches out there. I mean, if you were to ask Mario Cristobal today about, the four players and counting who have entered the transfer portal from Miami, Cristobal is either going to say nothing, next question, or he's going to wish these players well and, say something nice about them and move on quickly. That's how a lot of coaches handle it. Don't air your business out in public. Fran Brown is not like that. Fran Brown has no filter. So he's on Q Sports Talk Live, and he says this about Trebor Pena, really painted this having to do a lot with money, okay? What I'll tell you is this. We paid him enough, he said. He was going to be paid more. There were different things that would go there, but there were some numbers that were asked of me that I didn't feel I would be able to do and move on. Of course, I treated him right, Brown said on Pena. I took care of him, done everything that was needed. I just said, yo, you got to go. I prayed on it, he says, that night, and I kept going through things. And it was like, why would I try to convince somebody to be somewhere when I know the offense works, he says. Now, here was, and by the way, just for, because some people are taking quotes from Brown out of context, it was not a full-on bash session. Like Fran Brown talked about how much he loves Pena, how good of a friend he is to him, did throw in some stuff about how much Brown and his coaching staff helped Pena to get where he is, which, may Fran feel, insulted that, we helped develop this guy and now he's looking for more money somewhere else. But he did paint it a lot having to do with money. But Brown also said something that I found this to be an odd comment, okay, about Trevor Pena, worrying about stuff on the field that as a player you shouldn't worry about. He says, quote, Trevor was not a coach, he's a player. So he was worrying about things that players don't worry about. Players work, and that's what they do, and not worry about us. Trevor was worried about his future. Like, I want to make sure I go to the league and have a year like I had last year. And I'm excited for the kid. I think he's going to have a good year. So, okay, let me unpack that for a second. Fran Brown was essentially saying, why is Trevor Pena worried about who his quarterback is going to be? Because Syracuse, of course, is moving on from Kyle McCord, McCord is moving on. He's out of eligibility. Kyle McCord is moving on, who had a really good year and helped Pena put up big numbers because the quarterback play was stellar last year. And now you've got the great unknown of Ricky Collins. And it, based on Pena's decision, it doesn't sound as if Ricky Collins really lit it up in the spring. So basically, Fran Brown, the way that I took that comment was, wait, hold on. Why are you you're a player, you show up and work. Why are you worried about who's going to be throwing you the football or how good your offense is going to be? And from where I sit, you're talking about a wide receiver. You don't think a wide receiver should be worried about who's throwing him the football? You don't think he should be worried about what kind of numbers he's going to put up in his final year to try to get to the NFL? Fran Brown doesn't think he should be worried about stuff like that. I'm like, wait, that's kind of a big deal. That's probably something you should be worried about. So Brown also brought up a comment about, receivers asking for $2 million. Now, he didn't specifically say, this was a separate answer, but Brown is the one who brought up the 2 million number. The interviewers didn't bring this up. Fran Brown brought it up. So he didn't explicitly say, Trevor Pena asked me for $2 million. He didn't say that, but for some reason he used 2 million as an example. And, I've seen some responses from people who seem to know Pena who are like, no, he didn't ask for 2 million. Like, that's not a real number. And obviously 2 million for a slot receiver is, I don't know if anyone would pay that for a slot receiver like that. That's quarterback money. I get that. Like, if that's really what Pena asked for, then I get it. That's a lot. So he says it didn't play into it at all, but some people are asking for an outrageous number. Fran said, you're not about to make more than every coordinator. Like, stop. You want to make 2 million at wide receiver? That's the little homie at Ohio State. He's talking about Jeremiah Smith. Nobody else is making that money. Ain't giving no wide receiver $2 million, man. In college, nah. That ain't me. I can't be doing that. Unless they tell me we get a chance to have Travis Hunter, he can come back to college and he can come here, play for us. Yeah, then he's going to get some of my check. I ain't paying nobody $2 million this year. I just said, yeah, we aren't giving anybody that. So again, it's unclear whether Fran Brown was saying Trevor Pena asked for $2 million or if that's just a number he threw out there arbitrarily. But he did paint it about money. And again, it's like, I am of the school where, and most of the coaches that I've covered over the years are of the school where, a player leaves for whatever reason. You wish them well. You don't go into all the details. You don't, accuse them of chasing a bag. You just kind of move on with your life. And so, listen, and a lot of people are praising Fran Brown for what he said, because I know there's a lot of college football fans out there who they hate this era. They are fed up. Right? They are fed up with the idea that players can ask for more money. They can hold out. They can transfer out to get a bigger deal somewhere else. So there's a lot of people that are championing Fran Brown for what he said. Personally, I thought he took it a little bit too far, probably revealed a little bit too much that doesn't paint Trevor Pena in a great light. And we don't get to hear, well, maybe we will, because I guess Trevor, it's a free country. He can speak out if he wants to, but we haven't heard Pena's side of the story yet. And I don't know if we will. And then the other thing is, low key, isn't Fran Brown, and maybe this is the message he wants to send, but isn't he kind of sending out a message that, hey, if you're a transfer portal guy, or if you're a recruit, like if you're looking for what you feel is a competitive NIL deal, you're not going to get it here. And also, if you come here and you decide to transfer, I'm going to air your dirty laundry out in public. Like, that's the thing I would be concerned about long term, right? Because if you think about going to Syracuse, and players now transfer all the time, if you're thinking about going to Syracuse, you better stick it out for 4 to 5 years, because if you leave early, Fran Brown is going to tell the world exactly what happened, at least his side of the story. So again, we'll have to see, over the next coming days or coming weeks, if Pena does really emerge as like a hot target for Miami. Pena has been linked to Miami, and this is a really good player. I mean, just under 1,000 receiving yards last year from the slot, scored 9 touchdowns, led his team in receptions. I think Trevor Pena could be a really natural heir apparent to Xavier Restrepo and do a lot of similar things at Miami. He's actually bigger and taller than Restrepo is, but does share a lot of the same characteristics. But in terms of visits being lined up, here's one that we know about, okay? Early this week, Miami is going to be hosting a defensive tackle out of Boise State, Braxton Feely. Let's give you guys the skinny on that when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here? We're only getting started on Locked On Canes. Oh, my friends, we are only getting started with our friends at Upwork. I want to welcome Upwork to the Locked On family. If you're scaling your business, it requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them to top freelance talent around multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Guys, if you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivers incredible results. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, with multiple qualified candidates, you'll see them to choose from. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with the top talent to grow your industry today. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I take you around the conference, a lot of transfer portal stuff. Cal has lost 5 scholarship running backs in 48 hours. Miami doesn't even have 5 scholarship running backs. We got 4. Cal has lost 5 in the last 48 hours. But enough about Cal and enough about Syracuse. We had to talk about the Pena thing because there's a Miami tie-in there. Oh, and by the way, Fran Brown, let me take you over the 4D chessboard here for a second. If Fran Brown has a feeling that Pena might be trending towards Miami, he was playing 4D chess. If that's the case, if Brown thinks Miami is the spot for Trevor Pena, Fran Brown, who doesn't seem to like Miami a whole lot, as we found out over the last year, he might already be laying out the excuse that, oh, look at that. Miami dropped a ridiculous bag for a player who's not worth that. I mean, as much as Fran Brown said he loves Trevor Pena, he also, basically said he's not worth the money that he's asking for, which is a little bit of a backhanded compliment at best. So he might already be setting up that narrative against Miami, as we often see people do. All right. So, we told you throughout the week that when Miami locks in visits for transfer portal guys, we will talk about them. And the Hurricanes have locked in a visit with Boise State starting defensive tackle Braxton Feely. He's a former top 100 recruit coming out of high school. I think class of 2022 is when he came out. So top 100 recruit at Boise State. Like, that was a big get for them out of high school. And he's had a good long career there. Final year of eligibility for Braxton Feely. So, he's looking for, I would assume, a power 4 stop, a little bit of a higher profile. Although, listen, to Boise's credit, They were in the college football playoff last year. So they had a really high-profile game, ended up playing a more high-profile game than even Miami played last year. But obviously, on a regular basis, you're not getting as much exposure in Boise, Idaho as you would in, Miami, Florida, or somewhere else in the Power Four. And, I didn't know a whole lot outside of, watching their playoff game. I didn't know a whole lot about Braxton Feely. He's originally from Provo, Utah. So if he does end up at Miami, that would be quite a culture shock to go from, Provo to Boise to Miami. Maybe he's about that. I don't know. But I did ask Larry Bluestein about Feely, not only because our boy Blue has a file on every player in the country. He knows about everybody, but he watched Feely play an additional game against UNLV, one of Blue's alma maters. And he said Feely played really well in that game. And he's very complimentary of this player. I mentioned 1 year of eligibility remaining. So this, if Miami can land him, it would be like the similar type of move they made with the Simeon Barrow last year for the final year, or, David Blay, who they already got in this past transfer portal, who's going to play this year. And so in his junior season, Feely had what was described as a breakout year, was really good last year, was named a Phil Steele All-Mountain West first team pick and an All-Mountain West second team selection as well. Started 12 games last year, 24 tackles, 9 TFL, 5.5 sacks from the interior. He even played a little bit of offense as a lead blocker in what they call their Clydesdale package that, helps short yardage rushing touchdowns. Braxton Feely, 6'1", 296 pounds. Like, I don't know. Like, I've seen him described by some websites as an edge rusher. That doesn't seem to match his body type or where he actually played last year. This is an interior guy. He is setting up his visits according to Kane Sport. He's going to be visiting Cal over the weekend, and he's going to be visiting Miami next week. My understanding is that that's probably going to be around Tuesday when he gets to Miami. Assuming, he does, maybe he'll like the Cal visit so much, he'll shut down the rest of his visits. I hope, nor do I anticipate. I hope that doesn't happen, nor do I anticipate it would happen. But Miami is scheduled to be the second visit, and I don't think he has any other visits locked in after that. Listed as other schools that are after him include Texas A&M, Florida State, and Georgia Tech. So we'll have to see if he schedules any visits to those places. And so, okay. Now, in terms of Braxton Feely, I don't get the sense that, this is somebody who's going to come in and be the next Warren Sapp. Like, I don't, and no disrespect to him. Okay. I think he's a really good player, but I would see him as a really important veteran rotational guy if he does choose Miami. And you know what? If he does come to Miami, he's more than welcome to prove me wrong and just ball his way up into the starting lineup. I would love it. I am here for it. But I think the importance of making a move like this, maybe multiple moves like this, it goes back to something we've talked a lot about here on Locked On Canes, in that Miami has some really good players at the top of their defensive tackle rotation, but that there's a perceived drop off like after the top three guys, right? Now, we know Justin Scott looks like he could be a monster this year. Former 5-star recruit heading into his second year. He's been playing really, really well. Ahmad Moten looks like he's poised to have a great year. He really came on and dominated throughout like the second half of last season. Has a lot of momentum coming into this year. And the aforementioned transfer out of Louisiana Tech, David Blay, has had a really good spring. He looks like someone who can either start or be like the first guy up in the rotation off the bench. And so, maybe Braxton Feely could at least play that sort of a role and like add you a fourth guy that you're really confident in for the rotation. Because when it comes to, at this point, when Miami is trying to cross that bridge from being like a really good team that came close to contending last year. And of course, a lot of that had to do with who was the quarterback last year, because he made magic happen, right? But a team that was close, but not quite there. If you want to bridge that gap to becoming a team that's truly going to contend to win an ACC championship and make a college football playoff run, you have to be deep everywhere. You can't be having big drop-offs, right? We saw it especially in the defensive backfield last year, which Miami they've been addressing that. They're going to try to continue to do that at the safety position. But defensive tackle is a big spot where you need to really, I mean, if you've got right now 3 guys who you can trust, you need to make sure you have probably at least 5 that you can trust if you want to have championship level depth. So that's why, this is so important, and we'll track Braxton Feely. Now, I have to mention this, and man, the Florida fans have been trolling me incessantly for the past 24 hours. And take your cookie, take your victory lap, because someone who I thought would have been and maybe was a target for Miami in the transfer portal, young safety Gregory Smith III. He entered the transfer portal from Florida, but I guess they did what Fran Brown is not willing to do, and they gave him more money, and Smith decided to exit the transfer portal and stay at Florida. So that takes a player off of Miami's board potentially. And, we had talked about Gregory Smith, his relationship with Will Harris, that would have been a possibility. So you can take him off the board. So Miami is still going to be looking for safeties. And it seems to this point we're early in the portal window. It just opened yesterday, but it seems to this point you don't have a whole lot of high-profile targets available at linebacker or safety, which are a couple of positions Miami is going to be targeting. And, of course, Miami has already lost a safety in the transfer portal, and it's Zaquan Patterson. And there's a couple things have been, I think, clarified to me on, the guys who have left. Miami also did lose young edge rusher Elias Rudolph into the transfer portal yesterday. Very, very young. I mean, he only had 1 assisted tackle at Miami last year, didn't play a whole lot as a true freshman. He's got a full 4 years of eligibility coming up. I just, young player, was not really anywhere close to being at the top of the edge rusher rotation. He's seeking another situation. In the case of Josh Horton, the young defensive tackle that Miami, I guess he's not that young. He's heading into his 3rd year, Horton, but the defensive tackle Miami lost, we talked about it the other day. His career has been unfortunately really mired by injuries, and didn't really give him the opportunity to climb up the totem pole at Miami. So he's seeking a fresh start somewhere else. In terms of Zaquan Patterson, I think there is something to, like, some of the things that people have been chatting about behind the scenes. It does sound like there were some disciplinary things with him behind the scenes and with Miami staff. And so I think with that one, it was partially at least a football culture thing for him, why both parties decided it was best to move on. And I'm wishing Zaquan the best, as long as he doesn't go to Florida State or Florida. If that's the case, I will have no choice but to root against you. But if you go anywhere else, I will be rooting for Zaquan Patterson, because guess what? I thought he handled himself very well out the door. Like, he has nothing but nice things to say about Miami. It just seems like it was not a fit here, and I can understand why it was a mutual decision. Now, in terms of Nye Carr, I understand that this was maybe a cultural thing, but not a football culture thing, like culture of life thing, that he just didn't maybe feel comfortable in Miami, living in Miami, and he's seeking a different situation there. And it sounds to me, again, like this was not so much of a football thing. Apparently, he had thought going back to December or January, like he didn't want to be in Miami anymore, but he decided to stick it out through the spring to make his final decision, and he's ultimately decided to go. And I respect it, right? I mean, everybody, Miami works for a lot of people. It's not for everybody. So, go if he ends up maybe somewhere back closer to his hometown in Georgia. We'll be monitoring that situation, whether it be, maybe a UGA or a Georgia Tech or somewhere in that part of the country. We'll see how that one develops. All right, so, recruiting-wise, there's something that this might be someone Miami goes after. Another Florida Gators, Miami Hurricanes tie-in on a certain player who is he is decommitted from those guys up in the swamp. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Oh, and I'm certainly not done yet with FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here. We saw our Miami Heat, as I told you they would. They won their first play-in game against Chicago. FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and you place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy. Whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com to claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft. I mean, we're all going to be watching the draft, whether you're a Dolphin fan or whatever NFL team you support. As Miami Hurricanes fans, we're going to be watching our guy Cam Ward get selected, almost certainly get selected number 1 overall by the Tennessee Titans. So make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft on the Locked On Podcast Network to get you ready for all of that. And I was actually working last night. I was making draft profiles that they're going to be using on that show. I did a draft profile on Cam Ward. I did one on Elijah Arroyo. I'll probably be working on Restrepo and some other guys next. So make sure you check out Locked On NFL Draft right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, so 2026 safety Devin Jackson, who was committed to the Florida Gators, just decommitted from Florida, and it happened today. It happened on Thursday. This is a 4-star safety out of First Academy in Orlando, Florida, 28th ranked safety in the class, 53rd overall ranked player out of the state of Florida. He has made what I think is a wise decision to decommit from the Florida Gators. 6'2", 195-pound safety. We know safety, obviously, if Miami can land this player, this guy wouldn't be here until 2026. But we know in the present and future, safety is an emphasis in recruiting for your Miami Hurricanes. And, looks like Miami could be a team to watch for Devin Jackson since his decommitment from the Gators. And I'm going to say about him what I've said about a lot of different players, what we said about Jalen Seatbelt Waters, who decommitted from Florida, ended up flipping to Miami. Devin Jackson could be the next guy to do that because he's got a good relationship with Will Harris, who's, now would be his primary recruiter at Miami, was his primary recruiter for most of his process at Florida. And so Devin Jackson is definitely someone to watch. And, now that he has decommitted from Florida, On3, 24/7 sports, consider Miami to be either the warmest or the hottest in terms of his recruitment. And so, yeah, we'll see. And you notice this a lot. And it's not just because of Will Harris. It's been a lot of the same players being recruited by Miami and by Florida. We've had a lot of good recruiting battles the past few years with Billy Napier and Mario Cristobal. They tend to identify a lot of the same players they want in their programs. And, man, the fact that Miami got to play Florida last year, beat their butts up there 41-17. Miami hosts Florida this year. DJ Lagway has a ton of hype behind him heading into his second year. Carson Beck, hopefully he's in midseason form by that week 4 matchup. By the way, Carson has been, for those following along here, this is now his 4th day that he's been cleared to throw. And yeah, he's organizing those off-schedule player-led practices and workouts. And Mr. Beck is making up for, the time that he lost throughout the spring, recovering from the elbow surgery, but he's got plenty of time to recover. As Mario Cristobal mentioned this after the spring game, that they are allowed up to 16 player-led practices, which is actually more than the number of official spring practices that they just had, which was 15. So 16 player-led practices. And when he's not in one of those player-led practices, I'm sure he's going to be doing off schedule, throwing sessions with some of his guys. So yeah, Carson Beck is going to be putting in that work for the next several months before Miami opens up with Notre Dame in late August. And yeah, before that Florida game come week 4 down at Hard Rock Stadium. Oh man, did I leave anything off my list today? I had so much to talk about today. So yeah, we'll continue to monitor the Trebor Pena situation. Fran Brown, a little salty out the door on that one, and we'll keep you guys updated. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.